the drive from
Errol.
sheep from Arable.
Yes,
What year was that? About 1930, did you say?
that was in 1930.
Aye.
I was driving till I come up to the Lorman I was going to one of the farms in the south. I had learned the year before. My father had got met with an accident, and I gave up the job I was doing. I take over his job, and then I took Lorman's after he got better.
Aye.
And the pay wasn't very big then, I can assure you.
Well, I can imagine,
You were lucky. You were lucky if you got £3 a week at the Lorman then. In those days, that was in the 30s. And I was going back. I'd been lorman for Mr. L in the south, one of his hill farms, and he came to the house where my father was staying, working. He told my mum that he was taking me north, and I came up north in 1930 and did the lorman.
Yeah.
And he got me back up again for the clipping. And one of the shepherds turned out and they asked me would I go on the road driving to Lairg. And he gave me his collie dog. The late Mr. John Ellie gave me his dog. He says, I'll get him when I come back, for I had the dog with me. And that was my first turn. Now, the first stop, we'd over 600 lambs in front of us. We stopped at Mr. Mackay's, at Strathmore Lodge. Stayed the night there with him. And then we moved on to an old cottage further up and stayed there the night. It used to be an old roadman's cottage, and we stayed there for the night. And after that, one night I was there staying, and it came an awful night of rain, and we were lying outside, for the roadman was in the house, and we had to lie outside. And we had a sheet on the ground, and the water woke us. About 3 o'clock in the morning, our back was getting wet. So there was a late Douglas Scott myself, was on the go at that time. And we carried on from there to a place called Mudel. That's as if it belongs to Alton Harry Estate, and who got food there. Stayed the night for a while, and then we carried on to the Alton Harry Hotel and stayed the night there.
Right.
And then the next stop was called the Krask. Krask Hotel.
Kraskin.
Kraskin. And we stayed the night there. And then the next stop was at Dulhork, the shepherd's cottage on Dulhork Estate. We stayed there a night, whilst if we were too quick there, we maybe stayed 2 nights, just depend how we got on. And then we went from there to the Lairg sale.
Did you have to carry the feed for the sheep, or did they just...
Big pardon?
How did you feed the sheep while they were going on?
Oh, they just fed themselves on the road. You just walked at a slow pace.
Aye.
Let them feed all the way the road, all the time.
Aye.
You just kept moving them slightly.
Saying that a lot of it was the skill of just taking enough time to get there in time, but not to knock the sheep about too much.
Oh no, you daren't.
Aye. And that was...
The way to drive them was steady and let them eat, and they were improving as they were going on.
Aye.
That's what Mr. Elliot used to say, how they had come on from the age of drawing them.
Aye.
And when they were being sold.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I was there in 1930, the top lambs were making 10 and 6, 12 and 6, and 8 and 6 each.
Aye.
Aye. I a lot of them.
Yeah.
In fact, I saw small lambs sold for £1.
Mm.
That's me, I never rise off of this chair, I says that, and I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Yes. The top lambs would be, at that time, about £10, you see.
Right.
Round about that, in those days. That was a big good price.
And when you were driving down there, you were saying you stopped at Crask and Altnahara, and where else after that?
Altnahara, the Crask, and then Dulhork.
Dulhork.
Dulhork Shepherd's Cottage there, we always stayed there. The cottage is up in the hill after you pass Dulhork coming back this way, like.
Aye. Aye.
Whatever, and we always got good food from them.
Yeah. How did you pay for that yourselves as you went down, or?
Well, I'll tell you, we used to, the first, I used to stop at Castle Dew. That was the shepherd's cottage there. Stayed the night there and across the river. And then I stayed with Mr. and Mrs. Mackay at the lodge, the first lodge up Strathmore, Strathmore Lodge. I stayed the night there. Now, carried on from there. The top of the hill, and we rested there. We lay outside at the old shepherd's cottage, and the roadman had the use of it. And we stayed there. And then the next stop was at Altnahara.
Mm-hmm.
But we had a rest period at Mudo.
Mm-hmm.
That was a shepherd's cottage there. We had a rest period there and we got our food. That was the longest drive from the top of the hill from on the Mudo. That was the longest drive of the lot. It was a long stretch. You maybe know the cottage, Doctor. It comes out from a lodge away down in the valley.
Mm-hmm.
If you've been up Strathmore Road, it's just at the side, on the right-hand side, after you pass Lochmore, Strathmore Lodge.
Aye.
Aye. Well, that's where we went. And we stayed the night at Altnahara. Some nights you had got little sleep with midges, you had to be out most of the night. Then the next night you stayed at Crask. You got tea, we used to leave the sheep. There was a shepherd's cottage before you got to the Crask. You slept down there and get a cup of tea and they would watch the sheep. And carry on there to Crask and stayed the night there with Mrs. Murray. And then the next night we stayed at Dulhork, shepherd's cottage.
Mm-hmm.
And stayed there with Mr. McPherson. He was very good. They were all very kind to us, that's I must say. That was one thing, they were very kind to us.
Then you finished up at Lairg. That Lairg was...
At Lairg, and then he got a lift home with Mr. Mackay from Tongue with a small lorry. Just an open lorry, he sat in it.
Aye.
You got a lift home with him. He takes you home.
Well, that'd save the boots a bit, wouldn't it? That would save the boots a bit.
One time I did, was in 1935. I was at the second sale myself. And I got the mail bus from Lairg, a Tongue mail bus, to Altnahara. And after that I had to walk from Altnahara to Castle Dew. That was a shepherd's cottage in Arable Estate. I had to walk from there through the night. Aye.
And what was it you were telling me about? You made one drive down to Lairg and then you had to go back.
Oh well, yes, that was the one. That was in 1936. I had been at the lamb sale with the lambs as usual, and I was just home a day when I got orders to go away with the next lot to load them at Lairg Station for to go south to Mr. Elliot's farm in the south as well, down at Gallis Hills.
Right.
And I was very, very tired when I came back, I can assure you. I only had a day and a half rest.
Yeah.
And starting out again, I was pretty fatigued when I got home, I can tell you that. That was the time I had to come with the mail bus. Another time I had to come with the mail bus too and walk back again from Altnara.
How many shepherds would be working in Ballie at that time?
8.
8.
8 shepherds.
Aye.
And they're only 4 now. Got another young chap on, came just there last week, which is a good thing. Seems to be a nice boy. It's, and well, there's no ploughman there now, or cattleman.
What did you think? Do you regret the days of we're talking about the barnyards of Dalgatee when? What about the horses? Did you have much to do?
Yes, in fact, I can tell you, when the First World War broke out, no, it wasn't in the First War, it was the Second War. Second one. We had a chap in the headways in the reserves, a fella shoe gun. He was only in Ballinkill 2 months when he was called back up. And I had to take over, and I ploughed all the years of the war myself. And there were 2 of the staff was taken away to the army. One came back, another was killed. That was Johnny Campbell along the road there. He was killed. And the other fellow came back, but not to Ballinkill, for his wife left the house, went back away south with her children, down to the east coast, where they belong. And I saw him once after that. But that's how things went, and I had to plough there. I had to use the horses, drive the horses myself, do all the work with the horses over and above managing the estate, and did all the ploughing. And there was
that a pair of horses? Was it?
I had 3 horses on the place. There were a pair of horses at Ardrop, and then were an odd horse.
The other man's horse.
Aye, anybody could use him. Aye, and you know, it was great. I took out a plough. I had a great argument with them, and one of them said, "Oh, don't take that plough, you're not working." I says, "I'm taking that plough out." And I started with it, and I got it. I knew it, for I knew by my father, this year in the south of Scotland, I was taught that. And I knew to make a plough and how to set it. And everybody admired. Even there was one time where a judge came up from the borders, was the late Mr. John Elliott, and Mr. Elliott of Attenburn too. He judged at the plough matches, and he came up to see me. He'd heard about the ploughing, and he asked me, "Who taught you to plough?" I says, "My father." "Well," he says, "I'm going to tell you one thing, John." He says, "If you're ploughing in matches, it'd be very hard to beat." He says, "You'd make a beautiful job, and you've got that plough working accurately." But he went with it. He said, "I want to try it." And it was Mr. Elliott that told me all of this about, and he told me to sell the man. And they said that even the Loch Park there, visitors used to admire the ploughing, how level it was. Well, it was a lovely plough once you got it working, but you had to know it. Could I ploughed match when I was 14 years of age, and I got a first prize down in Midlothian. I got a first prize. I was only 14.
It's changed days now with the mechanics and all this. But
so
you're a technician now rather than a ploughman, eh?
And the wage, the marriage wage when I came north was little over £60 a year. I said that was the wage. But in those days, £1 would buy you a lot.
Right, sure.
a pound was worth something in those younger days. Not now. A pound's worth nothing nowadays.
Sure.
No. Yes. That's what I'll tell you, that's what I got when I came as farm manager to Balnakill. My wage was £86 a year, and that was for managing a 32,000 acre estate and doing all the bookwork and everything.
No.
And that was my wage. 1937.
Well, thank you very much.